we're going to start off with James Marsters. But wait, there's more. Sasha Royce. How about Zoe? Ready? Alessandra Torresani. Ladies and gentlemen, Ronald D. Moore. The co-creator and executive producer of Caprica, obviously, and David Ike, executive producer of Caprica. He's got a bag. What's in the bag? You guys are way down there. I didn't know you guys were all the way down there. All right, everybody's here, so now we're going to watch a little bit of footage from Caprica. This extended Caprica trailer that you are about to see can also be seen on Zune Marketplace, and that's exclusively for the next 24 hours. You can visit zune.net/ComicCon 2010. I'm sure you've memorized that. Or check out the Zune Video Marketplace on Xbox Live, and here it is. All right, so hey James, I wanted to ask you about your characters. Brings such interesting new layers to the show. Talk a little bit about the religion and the terrorism. I mean, those are interesting places to start with a character, aren't they?
Yeah, I think right now to be able to play a religious terrorist is there's a lot of meat on those bones. You can call him a Timothy McVeigh, or you can call him a Osama bin Laden if you want to, but it's kind of the same thing. The thing that I find interesting is that I think that I'm in the middle of what I would call a non-violent revolution. It's my own personal revolution, and most of my weapons are art. So I write songs on the guitar and poetry and stuff like that. I don't really know how effective my revolution really is, to tell you the truth. But my character on the show is in the middle of a violent revolution. But I think that that's really probably the only major difference between him and me, because I think that Barnabas is looking out on a society that's eating itself alive as far as he's concerned, and he's looking at the V Club, kind of like the Colosseum in old Rome, and seeing the decadence and seeing people really hurt each other for fun, and he's disgusted by that. He wants to change it. So I can kind of see where it's coming from, actually. I just think he's a little dramatic about his weapon of choice.
You know, as you were putting the character together, were there compass points in today's world, geopolitical scene or anything that you used?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think that anytime you have a character who thinks that he knows what God wants, then they can do anything. So I think that you could pick. I chose Timothy McVeigh because I don't know about Muslims too much, and I thought that this guy spoke English. But I think anytime you have that surety, then you have that danger that you can do anything. And I think that probably in any culture, in any religion, there are people who think that they know everything, whether they're Jewish or Muslim or Christian or maybe even Buddhist. There might be one Buddhist out there who thinks they know everything.
A badass Buddhist?
No, it would be a horrible Buddhist. It would be a really stupid Buddhist, but I'm sure there's one out there who thinks they can solve problems, by hitting people.
That's fantastic. And Sasha, you and I were talking backstage about your character, and you mentioned episode 4, which was a great episode, and that there was a sequence there where you really started to find some things to hang your hat on as far as the character.
Yeah, in episode 4 you start to kind of see the machinations of Sam and his relationship to Joseph and just his role in that family, and how he's his own man, even though he takes a lot of orders and he's part of a society that's built on order, that he's got his own idea of what's right and wrong, and he's going to execute it accordingly.
And then you were talking about the cast. I mean, such a great cast, a very deep ensemble. Talk a little bit about that as far as some of the actors you've gotten to work with.
Yeah, no, it's been a joy and really an honor to work with so many fabulous actors and such a pedigree, and you know, it just brings your work to a whole new level because they demand that. You know, their talent is so great, and it's just a pleasure to be a part of that.
And Alessandra, you've had you're not really just playing one character, are you? That's got to be a nice a treat for any actor.
No, it's really exciting. I mean, they're all based on the same Zoe Greystone, but it's fun. And in the second part, as you can kind of see in that trailer, there's a lot of new Zoes that you meet.
How many? Like 20, 30?
Multiple Zoes.
And then, so you're quite the Twitter. You tweet quite a lot. So
yes.
How does that go over on the set?
People like it, I guess. Oh, see, okay, so people do love it. It's great. I just want the fans. You guys are the most important things to us. So I really just want you guys to feel like you're a part of it. You know, from doing this kind of stuff to being on set, behind the scenes. There's going to be more YouTube that we've done that's actually fun with flip cams. More of that you guys are going to be able to see.
Well, you promised that you're going to put something up on YouTube, I think.
No, she's not.
There's a funny dance video of Sasha and Isai and I, of us being bored, waiting on set. So we decided to put costumes on and do funny little dances. He doesn't want it up there, so we'll see.
But you guys want to see
yeah,
the dance?
right? You want to see it.
How many phones do you have, Alexander?
No. This is a flip cam. Phone. That's his camera.
Oh, okay.
I got a Twitter right now, you know.
Talk about your Apple.
And this is my Apple. Isn't it gorgeous?
So Ron, you said when you started the show, I read something somewhere along the way that you even compared it to Dallas, and I know really what you were talking about was sort of the physics of family drama. Talk a little bit about that. That's an interesting way to frame it.
No, I meant Dallas. It's like, you know, we're going to bring in a JR.
Yeah, JR's back.
Yeah, I mean, I use that as an analogy to sort of break people away from the idea of what a science fiction show would be, that it doesn't have to be completely action-adventure based, that you can really do one that was much more of a character drama and sort of as a continuing show and a continuing series, and the most successful, arguably, of any of those. Oh, Mr. Ike is here.
Go on, keep talking.
There's tequila, guys, so it's about to get...
Just keep talking.
It's so late in the day, it's just, we need our juice.
I've heard this story before, so I just thought,
So yeah, Dallas. It's Dallas.
Fantastic. And then, one of the really effective parts of the show is the retro look of it, and I know you guys spent a lot of time thinking about the visuals and production values. It seems like the past, but it doesn't seem like our past. Hold on. Shots, everyone? Okay, now that you've had a shot, is Caprica coming back?
hell yeah.
Yes. I believe it's coming back.
Just a belief.
We're going to get it.
Just a belief.
We're in the last sort of stretch of talking to the network, and the network, is very supportive of the show. They like the show. They want to do the show, and it's literally just, figuring out schedules and budgets and all the sort of boring, arcane stuff that they do behind the scenes. But I firmly believe we're going to get the...
Quick, Jeff, ask him another question. Jeff.
So, of course, Ron's talking about the second season. That's
Second season, yes. The second half of the first season is in the can, and you saw chunks of it. You'll see the rest of it in January. Second half of the season, we feel really positive about. We think that the show really found its stride, and I think you're going to be surprised by a lot of the twists and turns that we take. And I think we have some really good episodes coming up.
All right, you can do another shot. But I was asking about the production values. I know that you guys take great pride in that, the retro look, the cityscapes and the fashions. How much does that help the show kind of establish this other world, and what were some of the things that you guys were looking for as you went into that process?
Well, I thought that the retro look of the show in terms of costume and set design and so on was really useful in sort of continually reminding the audience this is a period piece in a sense, that the events of Battle Circle. Some odd years into the future, And so I sort of wanted something that sort of constantly reminded us that this is the past in sort of the Galactica universe, and sort of saying that it's in the past, but their technology is actually more advanced than a lot of the technology that we saw in Galactica, was this interesting sort of dichotomy of old and new, and I just thought that that would be one of the hallmarks of the show.
It's also sort of a relative of that vibe in Battlestar, where you would see this incredibly advanced data system. Oh my God!
Magda.
I think we have a special guest star. Hold on a second, ladies and gentlemen.
All right.
Magda. Lacey's here. Hey, welcome to the panel.
Did I miss the party? Are we dancing?
Well, we're doing tequila shots. So.
Oh, sweet. Okay, I'm on the job.
But remember, you play 16.
Right.
Yeah, you're underage. But they have the same drinking laws on.
They have 18 and 19.
Okay.
Don't let this happen to you.
So, Dave, you were talking. David, one of the last times I spoke to you, you mentioned the Blade Runner heritage of the show. You had some interesting things talking about how Blade Runner was a sort of a North Star for you getting into Battlestar and with this. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, Blade Runner and Black Hawk Down, actually, which are two completely different movies, but they're both
Really?
by the same director, who we should probably be sending a check to every time we air an episode of these things. I think Blade Runner,
No checks will be forthcoming to Mr. Reed.
Mr. Ike has had tequila once again. The idea of asking the question, what does it mean to be human? And upending your expectations about what the fundamental definition of that is, to the point where someone who you think maybe is human isn't, was such a nucleus of what we were always talking about with Battlestar, and continues to be with Caprica.
Yeah. Magda, for you, I mean, it's such a fascinating group of writers, the stories that they come up with, this world that they create. For you as an actor, what's it like to get those scripts and see all this unfold?
I feel so lucky. It's really hard this day and age to find really good scripts and really good writing, and I just feel like I lucked out being on the show with you guys. It's a character that I love discovering with you guys, and yeah, just going really dark places.
Yeah, I mean, Magda's character really kind of goes through probably some of the greatest evolution in terms of where she was in the first half of the season and where she goes, and ultimately where she'll continue to go in the second season is probably the most unexpected arc of any of the characters.
I like that she constantly keeps getting beaten down, and then she just kind of starts being like, I have a voice, I have strength, and I can do something, and I need to do something, and starts realizing that one person can do something.
I can't really tell you what she's going to do in the second season, but Lacey will start being called Larry. So.
Why, Larry?
Did not see that coming.
Everything.
So, James and Sasha, as far as the show having such strong linkages to Battlestar, obviously, and Battlestar Galactica became a phenomenon, critical and success. Yes. So say we all, right? What's it like to start with a new show that has that heritage, but you guys have to find your own way, and you guys find that a lot of the viewers you have now aren't former Battlestar viewers?
Yeah, I've been pleasantly surprised how many people I run into that have not seen Battlestar Galactica and are big fans of Caprica, and it's always really encouraging and exciting, as well as all the Battlestar fans have come over and really supported us. You know, it's an honor on one hand because it's got such a legacy, but on the other, it's also a big responsibility because people are treat their Battlestar. It's very dear to them, and they want you to do justice to its prequel. So hopefully, people are pleased with what we're doing, and yeah, so it's been really exciting to just walk into a franchise already that's there with fan base that's waiting for you.
Yeah. And I really appreciate, one of the things I like about Caprica is that it stays on the planet. Like I'm a sci-fi nut, but I have to say, like a lot of my favorite science fiction pieces, and Blade Runner definitely is one of them, stay on the planet. They don't fly off into space too much. That's for me anyway. And I think for myself, those pieces, it's easier for those kind of pieces to comment on our world, because it's a little closer to our world. I think when you go out in space, nothing against Battlestar Galactica, because it was very unlike that, because it's still very human. Battlestar Galactica. But really, when you go down to the planet, it's just more recognizable, and I think that's cool.
Now, Alessandra, you were saying that in Vancouver, rainy Vancouver, that Caprica is our life. You mentioned that earlier today. I thought that was interesting. Is that a good thing? Is that a commitment? Or?
No, it was absolutely an amazing thing because, we're not shooting it in Los Angeles. We're not in our homes where we're comfortable with our friends and our family. Caprica literally was our family and it was our life, and we bonded really quickly. I mean, we have crazy Uncle Isai, Sasha's my brother, Eric's my dad, Paula's my mom, my best friend's Magda. I mean, it really, you eat, breathe, sleep Caprica, and I hope it shows for you guys.
Eric is your father, and then you told me earlier that gives you an interesting grandmother.
So technically, because Eric Stoltz is my dad, Cher is kind of my pseudo-grandma, right?
You guys want to see her Cher impression? It's pretty awesome.
Oh! She's gonna think I'm crazy. She's gonna think I'm a loony bin.
Ron and David, one of the things about Battlestar is it had such an urgency to it. There was such a sense of peril and movement, and as James mentioned, this is rooted on a planet. Coming in, that had to be something that you had to think about as a challenge and an opportunity, I would imagine.
Yeah, I mean, because it isn't as clear-cut. The threat is looming, and for fans of Battlestar, they know that the threat is coming, but I think in the same way that an audience will go to see Titanic or a World War II film, you know the outcome. It's really about the ironies and the unexpected twists that are involved in reaching that conclusion that upend your expectations or circumvent what you assumed. And the great, I think when we first started talking about Caprica, it was really about an opportunity to go into the interior, to really investigate character even more deeply than we could on Battlestar, where there was that very overt threat. And that's been the fun of the show. I think the challenge of it has really been to create situations and dramatic milieus that are as intense and as riveting as what we were able to do on Battlestar. And I think in the second half of season 1, you'll see that concept really kind of emerge and I think arrive in a way that makes the show every bit as much a nail-biter as Battlestar was.
Well, I have no idea what happens at the end of Titanic, but I'll take your word for it. Magda and Alessandra, one of the things that Battlestar did and this show has done, is present female characters that are really compelling. They don't seem like two-dimensional characters in any way. These writers, these creators seem to be known for that. Can you talk a little bit about that? That must be a real treat for you guys.
I like that me and Alessandra, we have two really strong characters, but in two completely different ways, and the young women find their own strength at their own time in different ways.
Yeah, it's great, and I feel like, we are complete opposites on the show, and I hope that, maybe some people will relate to me, some people will relate to you, but they actually, towards the end, are really strong.
Yeah.
By the end of season 1.5, these girls kick ass, and I don't think you're expecting what's going to happen. It's funny, though, that the writers are so in tune with 16-year-old girls. It's weird.
Ron, you want to take that?
Everyone here knows James Marsters, right? Change the subject for anything. Long live those Bucky coattails, man.
James, for going off point for a moment, but you're going to show up on Smallville pretty soon, is that right?
Yeah! You're going to come and kick my butt again. Yeah, I'm going to the 200th episode.
Yeah, fantastic. 200, wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Why do you think that show has resonated so long?
I think because Tom Welling still looks hot. He he moisturizes so they can go for another 5 years,
Oh, his skin, he looks young.
Yeah, he looks fabulous. I mean, that's like your basic job on television, man. You got to be the freshest little piece of fruit that you can.
Does it make you hate him in any way? Or?
What that?
Does that make you hate him in any way?
No, not at all.
Nothing but love.
He's like smarter than you think he is, like a lot smarter. tell you, man, you know, I don't play an intellectual character, and he's actually a bit nastier than you would ever expect either. And a really good director.
Stupid, okay.
No, he's not at all, and a really good director. One of their best, actually. Yeah.
And Torchwood, yes. You got it all going on. You know, Ron, can you talk a little bit about the female characters? Because I think that's kind of an interesting thing. Why is it that you think that on this show and the previous show in this universe, the women have resonated so much?
I don't know, honestly. I mean, I was sort of always interested in writing female characters in sort of non-traditional military roles, dating back to my years at Star Trek, where I liked, you know, casting female Starfleet captains and putting them in interesting places. And you know, when we were developing Galactica at the miniseries, it was apparent from looking at the old show that, you know, they didn't really utilize the female characters that strongly. And here was an opportunity to sort of say, okay, if Starbuck's going to be a woman, then what does that say about the society? What does that say about this military? And it was a short step from there to say, yeah, and if there's going to be a president, maybe it's a woman too. And okay, now we're starting to get a lot of really interesting female characters. And then we have number 6. And everything just sort of, one thing would always lead to another. And the joke around the set of Galactica was that all the females like saved the show every week, and the guys stood around and watched them, which didn't make Jamie Bamber too happy at times, but it was like true. I mean, it was like the female roles at Galactica had just the best things to do in the series, time and again, and it was just more fun to write for them for whatever reason. It became a joy to sort of do something different, especially in the science fiction genre, which I had this sort of prejudice that, you know, that sci-fi and fantasy had gotten to a place where if you put a female character in a movie, you basically had to put them in leather, and they had to kick people in the head with stilettos. And beyond that, they didn't really have a role to play. And I thought, well, you know, that doesn't make any sense. So what kind of a world is that? And it just became one of our hallmarks to just keep writing female characters and make them three-dimensional and make them as interesting as we could.
And there was also the matter of, yeah. You know, when Ron first told me about the idea of Starbuck as a woman, I thought, oh, that's interesting, okay. And then he said, and rather than just having this commander, Adama, we'll have this, you know, second half of the, you know, leadership will be embodied by a female in charge. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. So we have a lot of women in charge. And then Ron said, yeah, and I want all the men to have to call them sir. I said, Ron, is this really just about empowering women, or is there some reason why you really want the men to call the women sir?
And this time around, they all have to be 16.
Yeah, exactly. Those records have been sealed.
What about, you know, September 11th was such a big part of Battlestar. It was woven into the fabric of it. It was hard to watch the show and not think about all the things that happened after that day. This show seems to have different things that it's tapped into. What are some of the, I mean, as far as corporations and industry and ethics, can you two talk about what you did going past the September 11th influence?
Well, we said, you know, Caprica is us today. You know, Galactica was sort of us in the post-9/11 world, you know, writ large, taking it to the next step and saying, okay, what if the entire civilization had been wiped out? There was only this course. We kept saying, what if we did a show where it was just the people inside the World Trade Center that had survived and everyone else was dead? And that was sort of the hallmark for Galactica. And then for Caprica, we said, well, this is a society much closer to ours now in many ways. We're going to deal with corporate intrigue, we're going to deal with politics, we're going to deal with sort of society and class and the immigrant experience, and it's going to be much more recognizable as sort of the world that we live in right now. And so we were at pains to sort of try to give as many familiar sort of touchstones to the world on Caprica as we could. And yet, it's sort of like saying we're doing a show that's now inside the World Trade Center in the years leading up to 9/11. So it always has this sort of cloud, there's this foreshadowing, you always know that all these people are doomed, this society is doomed, it's all going to come to a really ugly, messy end, and none of them are aware of it. And I thought that's an interesting tension that should underlay the entire show.
You know, for the actors on the panel, I always think it's interesting to talk to actors about when they first take on a character, they think it's a certain thing, and then as the character goes along and grows and surprises them, they find it might not be what they first thought it was. You know, it's just the difference, the odyssey of the character. Maybe if you guys could talk a little bit about when you took the role, what you thought it was, and if it's changed, and if it hasn't, that's fine. But is there any surprises there, James?
Yeah, I was surprised about how much love there was in the character. I was directed to really be a loving Methodist priest. You know, my dad was a Methodist priest, and so I knew a bunch of priests, and you know, I came in going, okay, I'm going to be the villain again, you know, and I really was told to really open up other doors, and I think that was somehow the creepy came in when that happened. So yeah, for me it was the love. Yeah.
For me it was the gay, I think. That came as a bit of a surprise, but a pleasant one, mind you, because I think it actually ended up making the character much more layered and much more interesting, and certainly has a very interesting message, or you know, a take on a world where that isn't a stigma, that isn't an issue, and how we function in a world like that. So that's an interesting layer as well. It's not the monster you think it is. You know, he's a loving uncle. He's a family man. He's a devoted, you know, he's a devoted member of his community, and it's fascinating to see this dichotomy play out, where all of a sudden this character ostensibly is the worst guy in the cast turns out to be quite lovable at times, I think.
I think for me, when I went in for it originally, I thought it was supposed to be, rebellious rich teen, and she creates an avatar of herself, and I wasn't aware of how many different Zoes would come out of it. Especially after the pilot doing the robot, being in that body and having to stand still and just be able to work with my eyes, and that's my form of communication. I would not have ever thought I would be doing that, and those are some of my favorite scenes, because, you know, I can't speak, so my emotion literally is in my eyes, you know, and it was really rough and terrible working with Eric and Paula, because it was so heartbreaking seeing them talk so poorly about their daughter, and she's standing right there and she can't scream or say anything about it. So that was something that I didn't expect to be doing.
Not to mention the fact that in the second half of season 1, you do get to kick people's asses in leather and stilettos.
Right. That.
And you said you're going to be wearing less clothes more often, right?
Yeah. So, seems to be what I'm good at, so.
Maggie, what about your character?
Well, when I read the pilot, I just remember thinking that Lacey seemed a little undefined, and where did she fit into the script? And that's actually what I realized. It kind of clicked, and I realized that was actually her whole part in the world of Caprica. She is undefined. She's still being molded, and I've just kind of gone with her to figure that out, and it's been really interesting.
Yeah, we're going to get ready to take some questions from the audience, and if I could ask you guys to not make proposals, pitches, don't threaten anybody, please make sure everything ends in a question mark. You can start lining up there, and while you guys are doing that, you know, Ron and David, one of the things that happened with Battlestar is this great story arc, and it wraps up. There's a beginning, middle, and end. Do you guys have a sense of the end game of Caprica when it arrives? Do you know where we're going?
No, you know, we're holding that out for now. In the first season of Galactica, I couldn't have told you how long it was going to go or where we were going. I mean, I knew sort of what the ending was going to be in general, because they were going to, you know, it was baked into the show that they were going to get to Earth one way or another, and it was going to be something. With Caprica, you can look ahead between where Caprica is right now and the beginning of the Battlestar miniseries, and there's at least a half dozen points along that historical timeline that I could see this show ending. And I think we have to just sort of get into the second season and, you know, potentially the third, and sort of feel what the rhythm of the show is and what's going to be the natural place to end this part of the story. And right now, I think we're just open, and we'll just see what happens.
And we'd also like to announce that we have a third season order for Caprica.
Yeah, we don't have the second. But in a very unusual move, they're going to order the third. It's a bold new strategy for sci-fi.
I just glad to hear that Battlestar was baked. I had no idea that Battlestar was baked. Half baked, full baked. All right, so let's take some questions from the audience.
Hi,
Hi, my question's for Sasha, and I wanted to know how your real-life relationship with your family informs your performance.
It actually does help quite a bit because my family immigrated from Russia, and I was still a kid. I was about 6 years old when we came over. I grew up in Canada, and I was waiting for that. A couple out of here, I can smell it. So there's the immigrant experience. There's, you know, we were a minority growing up, so there's definitely dynamics in my upbringing that informed the character for sure. Thanks.
Next, hey, how you doing?
Hi, my question is for James. How did you go about trying to separate yourself from playing Spike to creating this new fabulous character of Barnabas in a whole new fandom?
Spike came out of a period of my life right after I got kicked out of college, and I was bartending at the Hard Rock, and I was hanging out with really, really, really bad people in really bad places, and so that's where that came from. I guess where Barnabas ended coming from was really my dad, as a Methodist minister, so my dad never blew anybody up. So it's just different chapters of my life and different people that you just kind of start with. Yeah, good question.
Hey there.
When we see the younger versions of characters from Battlestar, or perhaps you mentioned their families, especially interested in seeing young Dr. Cotto.
Young Dr. Cotto.
That's a great idea, actually. That's a great idea. Dr. Cotto Chronicles. He'd still be smoking at like 86.
Right now, we don't have any plans for that. I think it's one of the danger zones of the show is to get too cute and to start, oh, and here's so-and-so's dad, you know, but I'm not saying that we'll never do it, but it's not really at the forefront of our storytelling.
Yeah, you're looking for like the bullseye opportunity. If you're going to do it, it has to really be unexpected, and it's too easy to kind of fall victim to that.
Good question. Hey.
Hi. I was wondering, how do you guys balance the really heavy philosophical questions in the show with the lighter parts of the show?
What lighter parts of the show?
I'm not sure what that word means.
I think you're looking for the Warehouse 13 panel. Sorry.
It's tricky. It's something it's hard to even define how we do that sort of thing. And it's up to the writer of that particular episode and the director of that particular episode to sort of figure out what the rhythm. You know, it's mostly something to do in the cutting more than anything else.
Yeah, I mean, Jonas Pate, who's sort of our third partner on the show, is our directing producer, is I think really adept at that, at finding humor and finding irony and finding little bits of business within scenes that not only may not be out-and-out jokes or that make you laugh, but that humanize the characters, and even in dark moments or tense moments. I mean, there's a great moment in an upcoming episode where, under fire and having been accused of being terrorists, Daniel and Amanda are hiding by donning these completely goofy Caprica Buccaneers hats and costumes, and the whole thing is just absurd, and that's the kind of thing Pate does a lot, is just sort of colliding something slightly absurdist with an otherwise really tense situation.
Next, hey.
Can you talk about the way that marriage is portrayed in the Caprica universe?
Well, we tried to sort of expand the definition of what is marriage, you know, beyond even what we talk about today, which is where the idea of Sister Clarice's sort of, group marriage came from. It was sort of a concept that had been kicking around in writers' offices, even back in Galactica, about saying, well, what are the different societies of the 12 colonies? What are the different sort of social norms that they pretty much deal with? And it was just a notion that we kept sort of kicking around and never really landed on a character. And then when we were talking in between the pilot and the series about the different characters, I don't even remember who it was. It was me or Jane Eskinson or somebody in the writers' room. Came up with this idea of, oh, let's give that to Polly's character, because that's kind of interesting. And we've seen polygamy as, like Big Love does it, but you've never seen sort of a true group marriage where there's men and women and they're all sort of jointly married together and raising kids and in this big sort of house. And just thought it was a fascinating notion. I think it's not the only variety clearly on Caprica, but in the 12 colonies, it seemed like the definition of marriage is a fairly broad one.
Kind of reminds me of Robert Heinlein. He did that a lot, yeah?
Did he?
Yeah, he had different kind of family situations. There's a short story, one of my favorites, The Moon is a Harsh Mistress.
Oh, yeah.
The moon, and they were all group stuff.
Was there group marriages in that?
Yeah.
You know, that might even be where it came from. I was a big fan, well, no, on a certain level, because I was a big fan of Heinlein growing up, and I read that book, and I read, you know, Stranger in a Strange Land. That might have, like, sat in the back of my mind.
And in Stranger, there was the one guy, and he had all the different secretaries. And
Yeah.
but they were all, like, equal, too. It wasn't like a harem at all. Yeah.
Of course not.
There's another royalty check you have to write. Hey, how you doing?
Hi. Given that James Marsters is sitting on the panel now, can we take this to mean we'll be seeing more Barnabas in the future?
No. He's just here, and we said, hey.
They gave me free coffee, so.
Hi, this question is for Ronald and David. I know you had a very clear mission statement when you did Battlestar Galactica to make sort of the anti-sci-fi show. I'd like to know what your mission statement is for Caprica.
From the very beginning, it was you don't need to have seen Battlestar Galactica to get deeply involved in this show. And the truth is, Caprica has been in development. I was looking at the calendar the other day when we were talking. I think we sat down to have our initial discussion about it with Rami Abishan almost 5 years ago. So this thing has been cooking and stewing and really kind of getting enriched for a long time. And I think part of the reason why we needed that was because we wanted to imbue it with its own integrity so that it didn't just feel like a step cousin of Battlestar.
And it's worth just noting as a side note that, you know, one of the forgotten people, the unsung heroes of the show, is Rami Abishan.
Yeah, he came to us with the idea.
Without Rami, if he hadn't come to Universal and pitched an idea of doing a show about artificial intelligence and sitting down and co-writing the pilot, you know, we wouldn't be where we are today. It's always, you know, give Rami a hand of applause. Yeah.
Just a general question to anyone who can answer it. Can you shed light on the Battlestar Galactica movie?
No.
We know not of such things.
She's talking about the Bryan Singer.
I know what she's talking about.
I know I'm talking to you. I was talking to them. Are you guys going to be in it? That's a joke.
Hi, I was wondering, since you have this established storyline with Battlestar Galactica, is it hard to like reconcile that with like being creative and telling your own new story?
Well, we were very careful. I mean, one of the things that gave us an advantage, you know, when David was talking about how long this has been in development, it really did overlap the last two seasons, right, of Galactica. So we were able to make sure, as we wrote the last 2 seasons of Galactica, that we didn't write ourselves into a corner for Caprica. We started avoiding mentions of anything that happened historically. We didn't say, oh, and remember when the Cylons were invented? And we gave ourselves a lot of leeway so that we set it up in a way that we answered, in my opinion, all the important questions of Battlestar Galactica were answered, you know, by the end of the series. And that meant that there weren't any giant mysteries to be solved in Caprica or things really tied to into continuity, and that Caprica could really be its own show and have its own integrity for what they were doing. So it hasn't really been a problem for us to sort of, oh, and what did we say in Galactica? They were kind of set up to be separate properties.
Hey, how are you?
Hi. Can we get a sneak peek of what other colonies or cultures we'll see in the upcoming season?
Well, Geminon, I think, is going to play a significant role in the next batch of episodes, certainly, and also not so much on camera, but in what hopes to be a second season. A lot of seeds planted about what exactly is going on in Taron, what the nature of Sam's investment and involvement and focus on that culture is, and on a battle, a conflict that's taking place on that colony. So I think Geminon and Taron, at least initially, and then going forward from there, significantly more.
Could there be some Amazonian women at some point?
Ooh, my Hercules roots, you're getting me all hot and bothered.
right. Are you guys going to do any background story for the original human characters that became Cylons?
I don't know. That's a very good question. We talked about it briefly, I think, in a couple of writers' retreats we had, and talking about concepts of the show and sort of where the models might have come from. But it feels like all that's still far enough in the future that we haven't really dealt with it yet. So it's kind of a maybe.
What is it for you guys as far as the writing? Can you talk a little bit about the dynamic of how you guys, you mentioned a retreat, how you guys sort of plan this stuff out and what the sort of physics of that is among the group?
You mean when we get the network to pay for us to go to Tahoe and drink for a week? Oh.
Is it time for a shot, Dave?
Oh, yeah.
It's a very free-flowing process. It's egalitarian. It's very much a group of writers sitting in a room, and the showrunner and head writer's job is to kind of be first among equals and sort of guide the process more than just saying this is what the show is. It kind of varies a lot, you know. It varies on the personalities sitting in the room. The writers' rooms that we had on Galactica are not really analogous to the writers' rooms that we had on Caprica, and it also depended on a lot of various factors, you know, how much money we have to spend this week, which was always not enough, and how much time we had to write the story, which was always never enough. And you were always sort of scrambling and trying to put cards up on the board and work out the stories as best you can. And we would have sort of larger goals for what the season was supposed to be. But, you know, on the first season of any show, you're sort of constantly reinventing that as you go along, because you would discover things that worked and want to write towards them, and you would discover things that didn't work, and then you would start to avoid them later. So I think if you looked at the first season of Galactica and the first season of Caprica, episode by episode, you would see us figuring things out along the way, trying this sort of rhythms and set of storylines this week, trying a slightly different one that week, and then as it goes along, the series itself starts to come into cleaner and cleaner focus for you, and that by the end, the process in the room is easier because you've made all these mistakes and you've discovered all these good things, and by the end of it, you're starting to go, oh, okay, well, this is really what the show is.
These are the 12 things the show isn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned resources and time, and I know you both agree that sometimes, though, those challenges lead to the best leaps of inspiration, don't you think?
Well, and technologically, I mean, we have an amazing visual effects crew led by Gary Hutzel that just got nominated for an Emmy. And as they remain at the forefront of, you know, cutting-edge technology and what you can do with CG and what you can do with green screen sets, it's really freed us up a lot too. And in fact, the network's been very encouraging about embracing that even more. And I think as the audience gets further and deeper into Caprica, they're going to start seeing a much sort of wilder and more varied visual palette than what they saw in the initial going. And part of that is what Ron was talking about. You start finding the show as you go. But to be able to find it not just from a writing standpoint, but also from a production and post-production standpoint, has really been freeing, because the show is almost unrecognizable from where it began, just in terms of how epic and broad the canvas has become.
Absolutely. Hey, how are you?
Great, thanks. With both Galactica and Caprica, we've fallen in love with humans that we find become Cylons, avatars, robots. Will you be grappling with the question more overtly, what makes us human?
I think that's the fundamental question of both shows. You know, what is it to be human? What does it mean? How do we define it? How would you know if a machine had a soul? At what point does it become a person, and how would you treat it? And, you know, how does it threaten you to make that acknowledgement? I think that was the people in the Galactica universe, one of the biggest obstacles that they faced was their unwillingness, almost to a man, to refuse to say that the Cylons were people. And the audience, of course, is watching them week after week, and they're played by people, and the audience identifies with them, but we also kept trying in Galactica to remind you that they were machines, they had been created, and to raise, it's a very existential question that really can't be answered. And I think in Caprica you're watching the beginning of that conversation as the Zoe avatar takes shape and starts to learn and grow and considers herself a person. And Daniel wants to believe in her as a person, and it's kind of where he made that leap. But what does that mean? And, you know, what are the moral and ethical ramifications of making that decision? You know, and I think it's a question that runs throughout the series.
Okay. Who would you say is more responsible for the Cylon race, Zoe or Dr. Gray Stone?
Well, Dr. Greystone is really the veritable Frankenstein, so as the one who's behind this effort to resurrect his daughter out of his own pain, comes this invention. So, I mean, I would say it's Daniel.
It's hard to say, but I would almost argue that it's Zoe, because without Zoe, the original Zoe, the human Zoe. See, you weren't in that writer's room, but in the original Zoe.
This is the egalitarian part.
The human Zoe is the one that came up with the idea of creating another life. You know, she's the one that came up with the whole notion of creating another person and giving a digital repository for a soul. So in a way, that's sort of the Promethean moment of trying to steal fire from the gods. But you know, you can argue it either way, and I'm sure we will.
That's a great question. Thanks. Next.
My question is for Ron and David. A while back when there were rumors sort of doubting the future of Caprica as a series, I also read that they were maybe planning on optioning other series. I was wondering if you might have any hints or rumors about what that would be and what that would mean for Caprica as a series.
You mean other spin-off series? Or, I wouldn't know anything about that, sir.
Next.
Starbuck and Hutch. I think that would be good.
Hi, this question is for Alessandra. For the episode where your father was putting you on fire, trying to emote emotion, how tough as an actor was that to play?
It was hard to have someone abuse you like that, especially being your father. It was hard. It was actually much easier than I thought it would be, in the sense where you actually have a ring of fire around you. You're scared out of your mind. So, you know, it wasn't a joke at that point. I knew that was serious. It was not CGI. There was actual flames right here. So that really did help a lot. And Eric's intensity of being an actor, I mean, it really affects you. His work affects everyone around him.
I was just wondering if, when you're filming, or in the scenes where you're going back and forth between the Zoe robot and the actress, if you have any problems with the sight lines, if you ever thought of just like putting her in a box?
Wait, say that again? I'm not quite understanding.
Well, when you're going back and forth between the actress and the robot in a scene, sometimes you'll be looking at your face and sometimes you'll be looking at the robot. If they ever thought about just raising you up so that the sight lines were the same?
We did actually have this conversation, which is a long technical conversation about us. He said eye line, you know, that's literally where the actor's eye is looking. And we grappled for a while about, okay, when they're talking to, when the audience sees Zoe, should his eyes still be looking up here where the robot was technically, or should we put her on a box and have Zoe, you know, Alessandra up here so that they could look at each other? But it seemed one of those. It seems stupid because then the audience is going to go, but she's not that tall, and what are they doing?
I don't think that it was about that. It was from Zoe's perspective.
It's from her perspective.
That's how I heard it,
That's, we just take the leap with the audience. It's like, okay, the audience is seeing her point of view whenever you see her, and in her eyes, he's looking at her, and let's just keep her normal height and just go with it. And,
pint size.
And no one will notice, but clearly we were wrong.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing good. This is for James. I'm a big Small Little fan, so I'm curious. How much of Brainiac do you draw, or how much of Barnabas do you draw from Brainiac for that role?
Man, I think Barnabas is just letting it all hang out there, man. I mean, he does manipulate people. I guess, okay, but both characters are pretty manipulative. But Brainiac just is like all manipulation. He just pretends that he cares about you, and he really doesn't care about you at all. But I think that Barnabas likes to speak his truth. He wants to be truthful, and he only manipulates, I think, when he feels like he needs to. Otherwise, he's just bragging. I'm right.
We have time for one or two more questions.
Two.
Now it's two.
This question is for Alessandra. I was wondering, as a personal aspect, what do you relate to most to your character, Zoe Greystone?
Both of my parents were in the computer technology company my dad invented. So And that's kind of what I'm basing it around, that I grew up in this environment where I was always great at math, I was always great at science, but that wasn't my passion. My passion was acting and the arts, and Zoe's passion is something else. Hers is the one true God. So that's what I'm taking that from.
Very cool. Hey, how are you?
Hi. I was wondering if we're going to be seeing more of Tamara in the virtual world, and if maybe that was a little bit influenced by virtuality, the focus on that.
You will definitely be seeing more of Tamara and the V-World. Was it influenced by virtuality? Probably in some ways, in that I was dealing with two projects. Virtuality was a pilot I did for Fox that didn't get picked up, but and they both sort of dealt with virtual realities and you know, having people exist in a virtual world and how it would affect them back and forth. So it was certainly something that was in my mind in both projects, but I don't know if there was a direct this influenced that kind of thing.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am told that it's time to come back to Earth. Let's hear it for Caprica. Thank you. Now I say final out. We have something for you guys to watch. Hold on a second. We have Haven. We got some footage for you.